Here we go. President Trump says he's optimistic about working out a deal with Iran as Vice President Vance gears up for high-stakes peace talks in Pakistan.
But Iran's supreme leader is already complicating the process by floating plans to take over the Strait of Hormuz and demanding fees.
Trey Yinks joins us live from Tel Aviv with the details. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. With high-stakes talks scheduled this weekend in Islamabad, Pakistan, an Israeli intelligence official tells Fox News Iran is indeed demanding fees for the few vessels it's allowing to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. This official adds the strait is effectively under full IRGC control. They decide who gets to go through, but more importantly, who doesn't. I am told that there is intelligence being shared in the intel community about how Iran is trying to tighten its grip on this strait ahead of the negotiations this weekend. Overnight, President Trump taking to Truth Social to talk about the issue, saying, quote, Iran is doing a very poor job, dishonorable, some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not the agreement we have. With just 8 vessels reportedly passing through the strait in the first 48 hours of the ceasefire, a statement was released via state media from Iran's supreme leader overnight, saying, quote, and certainly we are entering a new era with the management of the Strait of Hormuz. We did not and do not seek war, but we will not give up our rightful rights in any way. And for this, we consider all the fronts of resistance as one. The region is waiting to see the outcome of the talks in Pakistan as Iranian officials and U.S. officials appear to be discussing a different set of terms. Iraq's foreign minister spoke yesterday about the talks.
We discussed the upcoming negotiation process in Pakistan, and we support and encourage this process. And we hope that the negotiation process will achieve its goals, which are peace and security in the region.
One issue that appears to be a sticking point is whether or not Israel will still be able to strike Hezbollah, Iran's largest proxy based in Lebanon. Overnight, the Israelis struck a variety of launching positions in southern Lebanon, and shortly after, Hezbollah launched a rocket that triggered sirens in Tel Aviv.
I want to tell you, there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We continue to strike Hezbollah with force, and we will not stop until we restore your security. Our great achievements, both in Iran and against the axis of evil, have brought about a historic change in Israel's status in the region.
Next week, talks are scheduled to take place between Israel and Lebanon, aimed at creating peaceful relations between the two countries and disarming Hezbollah. But again, this news we can report today. An Israeli intelligence official telling Fox News Iran is indeed demanding fees for vessels to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. We are reaching out to shipping companies to determine if they are paying these fees. Guys?
Trey, any talks of arming the people of Iran? I know it worked for Reagan with Nicaragua.
Yeah, about a week ago, I spoke with President Trump about this issue, and he said that they tried to get weapons into the hands of Iranian protesters earlier this year, and ultimately those weapons were kept by, the president says, the Kurds. I've reached out to regional sources who say that is true, that those weapons were sent and they did not get delivered to the protesters. And so certainly there are a variety of options on the table for the president. They're waiting to see what the outcome of these negotiations in Islamabad will be, understanding that the Iranians lack leverage at the negotiating table. The IRGC has been destroyed and decimated in the aftermath of Operation Epic Fury. Iran's nuclear program was taken out during Operation Midnight Hammer. The production lines for these ballistic missiles and drones were targeted in U.S. and Israeli strikes over the past 40 days. And so the Iranians have very little at the negotiating table, and officials say they are going to have to admit that they lost on the battlefield and have a change of tune if they are willing to get a good faith deal.
So, Trey, that's almost zero chance of Iran admitting they lost, saying take the uranium and you could have the strait. So that makes you wonder, do they just go on with talks and say progress has been made like we saw prior to this conflict actually taking place? Or do you sense there's a timeline, maybe inside the 2 weeks, for these talks either to get traction or fall apart?
It's a great question. And look, President Trump has made clear, and this is true, that the Iranians often say one thing to the press and another thing at the negotiating table because they want to maintain this allure that they have power still within the country that has been largely decimated as a result of these U.S. strikes. But we're looking at a variety of issues here, and we are seeing, at least publicly, a difference in the positions being presented by the Americans and the Iranians. The president earlier this week said that Iran has agreed to allow a team to basically go to where these nuclear facilities had this enriched uranium dig it up from where it was buried in the aftermath of Operation Midnight Hammer and remove this highly enriched uranium from the country. The Iranians, just this week, their top nuclear chief said they're going to maintain the ability to enrich uranium. Then we have the issue of the Strait of Hormuz, where we know the president has demanded this passageway be opened, and the Iranians are sort of playing games, still not allowing vessels to freely flow through, and according to our reporting, demanding fees from those that are able to make this critical journey. And then finally, you have this broader issue of a program that not only supports regional proxies like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, but also an internal ballistic missile program that has threatened U.S. forces and allies across the region. And so unless the Iranians are willing to make serious concessions after they suffered this defeat on the battlefield, then the region would likely return to some sense of conflict.
All right. Great reporting, Trey. So you gotta disrupt the political leadership. And although we have killed, along with the Israelis, a lot of that structure, much of it still remains in place. So you got two options. Either you take them out or the people uprise and take them out themselves. They don't have the weapons right now to do that. So I think when you had the general on and he was talking about us being on the 5-yard line, that has to happen. Not necessarily for regime change, but you're only delaying, maybe 10 more years before they try to do this all over again.
And the general said that the Iranians, they're masters at delaying these negotiations. And he said everything that they value is on the table. We want them to give it up.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.